The ongoing war in Ukraine is significantly weakening the Russian government's control over its vast, resource-rich territories in Siberia and the Russian Far East. This region, sparsely populated but bordering overpopulated and resource-needy China, has long been a point of strategic anxiety for Moscow. The war has exacerbated this vulnerability by fueling growing anti-Moscow sentiment and creating specific power vacuums. The central government can no longer adequately fund local police forces, leading to the rise of oligarch-funded vigilante groups. Furthermore, it has lost the ability to finance the high military salaries and death benefits that once secured the loyalty of many residents, who are often poor and disproportionately conscripted. Compounding this, gasoline shortages have hit these areas particularly hard. Against this backdrop of instability, China is positioned to exploit Russian weakness in two primary ways that Moscow has long feared. The first is a direct military invasion, a scenario for which Russia has historically conducted war games. The concern is that if Russia became bogged down in a conflict in the West, China might seize the opportunity to attack from the East. The second, and currently more active threat, is a gradual cultural and economic takeover. China has a historical claim to parts of this territory, ceded during what it calls its century of humiliation. Recent Chinese actions suggest a strategy to reassert influence. These include redrawing official maps to incorporate Russian territories, renaming Russian cities, including key strategic ports, with their historical Chinese names, and aggressively negotiating economic terms, such as refusing Russian offers to build new oil pipelines to drive a harder bargain. Economically, some experts argue that Chinese businesses, which are closely aligned with the state, are effectively buying influence. They acquire long-term leases on land, but often hire Chinese workers instead of locals, leading to a growing demographic and cultural presence where Mandarin becomes more common than Russian. The war accelerates this process. Population loss from military casualties and westward migration for jobs creates labor shortages and empties villages, making the region even more susceptible to Chinese settlement and economic dominance. Russia faces a severe dilemma in responding. Expelling Chinese companies or suppressing Chinese language and influence could backfire catastrophically. China could weaponize Russia's own justification for invading Ukraine, protecting co-ethnic citizens and their language, to justify a military intervention in Siberia under the pretext of protecting the now significant Chinese population there. In conclusion, the war in Ukraine has created a perfect storm in Siberia and the Russian Far East, eroding Moscow's control just as a powerful and historically motivated neighbor is taking concrete steps, through map-making, economic pressure, and demographic change, to expand its influence. Russia, stretched thin by its war effort, finds itself with limited options to counter this creeping threat, leaving a powder keg, where Chinese influence may become the match that ignites a major geopolitical crisis.